Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. We are in the beautiful Rome, Italy. We had a good time yesterday, but it's time for us to leave and head to the airport. Luckily, we're staying at the Hilton Rome Airport Hotel, which is connected right to the train station. It's connected right to Terminals 1 and 3. So we should have a really easy walk over to the airport today for our flight on Vueling Airlines. So Vueling is a carrier that we really haven't flown on before. We've flown on them once to Barcelona from Munich, and now we're flying from FCO, Fiumicino Airport here in Rome, up to Paris Orly Airport. So Vueling is a low-cost carrier. They do a lot of the regional flights for airlines like Iberia. So we're going to see how the service is today, and we'll tell you what this all cost at the end of the video. As we make our way from the hotel to Terminal 1 of Fiumicino Airport, let's talk a little bit about this airline. Vueling is a Spanish-based airline with a headquarters in Barcelona. It has major hubs in Barcelona, Paris Orly, and Amsterdam. This airline started under private ownership in 2004, with only 2 aircraft and flights between Barcelona and the holiday destination of Ibiza. It grew steadily over the next decade, running into financial difficulties and going through several mergers and cooperative agreements, such as the one with MTV. In 2013, the International Airlines Group, or IAG, acquired a 90% stake in this company, adding Vueling to its portfolio of airlines, which includes Iberia, British Airways, and Aer Lingus. As of 2023, Vueling operated 124 aircraft visiting 99 destinations throughout Europe, Northern Africa, and the Middle East. We finally made it to the check-in desk at Terminal 1, and boy oh boy was there a line at the Vueling check-in desks. Alright, so we made it and we're in line, but the line is massive. They don't have bag drop here, so they just have the check-in desks. Whether you're checked in online or not, you come to the check-in desks, drop your luggage. The line seems to be moving fairly quickly though, so that's good. Despite the numerous passengers here, we made it through in about 20 minutes. So as long as that line was, we were only in line for about 20 minutes. It wasn't too bad. Now we're headed to security. You do have to pay attention to the weight limits and then also the luggage that's included in your ticket because they're very particular about whether you pay for an overhead or underseat bag. So just be aware that you don't automatically get 2 things to carry onto the plane. Just watch that when you're buying your ticket. They're all add-ons. As we said before, Vueling operates as a low-cost airline. For us in the United States, we generally know that to mean your seat is cheap, but you're nickeled and dimed for everything else. And generally that's what we found here as well. When you go online to purchase your ticket, you'll of course be shown several great prices, with the premium times of day being more expensive, just like with any other airline. We found this flight from Rome to Paris, leaving at 10:25 a.m. for €46. Sounds like a great deal, right? Upon clicking on this flight, we're shown several of what Vueling calls bundles, which are bundled extras that cost you a bit more. The Fly package lets you take an underseat bag and 1 piece of additional luggage in either the hold or an overhead bin. You can also pay an extra €80 for several more perks, such as luggage, changes or cancellation options, and the same options we said before. Or of course you can just go on with your chosen flight. If you choose your seat ahead of time, you will have to pay a fee, even for seats way in the back. If you don't choose your seat here, you'll be placed on available seats at check-in. This means that if you have a large family, it's best to choose seats ahead of time so that you're not split up before boarding. Of course, they always try to sit tickets next to each other, but on a very crowded flight with people picking all the seats, that might not be possible. Once you choose your seats, you'll have the option again to book your luggage. You will need to pay extra if you want an overhead bag. For some flights, like this one, it actually costs more, €29, to have an overhead bag than it does to have a 25-kilogram suitcase in the hold. Make sure you check out all of the bundles and individual options to get the best deal. Just as we thought, these extra charges made it so that our €46 flight actually became $75. Don't get us wrong, that is still an amazing deal compared to some other airlines. Now, this was just an example that we ran through, but be sure to see how much we actually paid later in the video. Let's see if we can get up to a lounge at the Fiumicino Airport. It was extremely busy today, so even with our priority pass, it was beginning to look like we might not be able to get into a lounge. Alright, we went to the prime class lounge, but all the lounges were very full. here at the Rome airport, so we had bounced around to 2 other lounges before we could finally get somewhere. But now we are on our way. They only post the gate about an hour before the flight departs. So this is a pretty big terminal, Terminal 1. There's 3 piers, as well as a non-Schengen area for international flights. So just be aware that if you're by gate A1, it might take you 15-20 minutes to walk over to A70 or whatever the last gate number is. But we're on our way to gate A70 for our flight to Orly on Vueling now. So it looks like it's starting to board already, about an hour before flying, 10 minutes before the scheduled boarding time. So this will be interesting. If they're already boarding, we gotta make our way over to the gate quickly. We rushed down towards the gate, passing by these really neat sculptures from antiquity on the way. Eventually, we managed to make it up to our boarding area. Before getting in line, we took a look at our plane today, this 10-year-old Airbus A320, which has spent its entire life in the Vueling fleet. It even has the fun little moniker of Air Force One painted under the cockpit windows. An A320 is what you're most likely to fly on with Vueling, making up over 60% of their fleet. We did notice when boarding that there is a priority lane, which is again a privilege available for purchase, and you can add it on when you book your flight. However, nobody seemed interested in this privilege on our flight. There is no business class or first class available on these flights. You can pay more for seats with extra legroom, and there is also a duo seat option on certain flights. This duo seat option basically gets you the same thing as European business class, with a middle seat being blocked in a 3-seat row. We walked out onto the jet bridge, admiring the paint scheme of this plane, until we were thrust into the cabin and found our seats. The seats were nothing to write home about, but the cabin did feel relatively fresh and new. It was also very clean, which we were surprised at given the extremely quick turnaround that our plane experienced today. One thing we did notice right away was the below average pitch of just 29 inches in the seats. It did make it seem like an EasyJet or Spirit flight. There was also space in the seat back in front of every seat for ads to be placed. We had flown on another airline that actually does place paper advertisements in front of the seats in the flight, so that seems like something Vueling is able to display to bring in more revenues and theoretically reduce their ticket prices. The overhead panel is fairly standard and no frills, with lights and an adjustable air vent. There was actually a decent amount of overhead cabin space, but again, you are supposed to pay for the privilege of putting your bags up here. The seat also had a tray table that was slightly below average in size, but again, it was nice and clean. Right on time, the jet bridge moved away, and our plane started its pushback. As we made our way to the runway, we passed several of the new ITA airline planes that still had the old Alitalia livery. It was nice to see this livery still flying. It just feels more Italian than the sky blue paint job of the other ITA planes. We waited a very long time in a very long line of planes waiting to make their way up to the runway. Our flight was departing at 10 in the morning, which is a prime time for many of the transatlantic flights heading to the US and Canada. Other than these American flights, it really only seemed to be budget airlines taking to the sky this morning. Luckily though, we got to see this beautiful Singapore A350 pull up behind us before we spooled up and made our way down the runway. We had a very smooth flight today, which was welcome. Unfortunately, we were not able to get much food in the lounge, so we thought we would try some of the catering on board. Vueling has an onboard dining menu that's similar to something like Lufthansa's Onboard Delights or United's in-flight dining. All of this food comes at an extra charge, but to be honest, the prices were very modest. In fact, we probably saved money by purchasing food on the plane rather than buying it in the airport. There are several drink options, snack options, like chips and pretzels, and then several hot food items. There is also a selection of duty-free cologne, perfumes, makeup, and more if that's your thing. We ordered a few drinks, a bag of chips, this turkey and cheese sandwich, which was relatively flavorless, and this pizza, which took forever to get to us. We received it about 25 minutes after ordering. However, it tasted much better than it looked. All in all, these items cost us about 25 euros. Before we knew it, we started descending through the clouds over the French countryside on a rather rainy and dreary day. We did a lot of maneuvering in the air before finally coming in for landing. To be honest, the flight experience was actually quite nice. The seats were a bit smaller than other airlines, but the cabin felt fresh and new, and the plane was very clean. There are no real frills on this airline, but again, the journeys that Vueling takes tend to be short hops, rather than long journeys. This makes a lot of those comforts and extras something that would just be nice to have, and not necessarily something that's needed. Alright, made it to Paris Orly on time. Overall, the flight was fairly comfortable. Luckily, the seats don't recline, which is nice, because otherwise you would be eating the headboard of the person in front of you. The seats are that close. But it is a budget airline, so we were kind of expecting that. So yeah, overall, not a bad flight. We're here now. So, let's see what we paid for this one-way trip from Fiumicino Airport in Rome up to Paris Orly. We paid for 3 regular economy tickets, as well as a seat and a baggage bundle. We were traveling around for 2 weeks and needed to bring our larger bags on board. This baggage bundle provided us with an underseat bag, which comes standard with every ticket, as well as a 25-kilogram checked bag in the hold, and a seat reservation. Given our hectic schedule, we also opted for the Flex Pack, which gave us the ability to cancel and rebook our flights for free, though this option cost an extra 10 euros. For full transparency, we did use this and actually changed our flight by a day, so for us it was worth it. Our one-way trip from Rome to Paris with these options cost us 136 euros per person. To us, this really didn't seem that bad. When comparing it to some other airlines for the same route, going to either Orly or Charles de Gaulle, we found that we'd likely be paying much more. Make no mistake, if you book on Vueling and get all the extras, like an upfront seat picked ahead of time, cabin baggage, priority boarding, and hold baggage, you're probably not going to find Vueling to be a good deal at all. But if you're traveling light and want to get somewhere cheap, we found Vueling to be a decent option in Europe. This was our second time flying with Vueling, and overall we find it to be a decent airline, but we're curious to see what you think. Have you flown on Vueling before? And what did you think of it? We hope that you found this video helpful, and we'll see you in the next one.